So we had the California recall election. Gavin Newsom ended up winning by quite a bit. The polls were tight in July and August, and he just pulled away. I didn't talk much about this on the show because as soon as Larry Elder became the face of the opposition, he's a right-wing radio host. He's way too extreme for California. I sort of felt like even though the polls were tight at one point, Gavin's he's gonna end up winning this. I didn't know what the margin would be, but he was gonna end up winning it. I didn't really find it all that interesting. Well, now we have the results. What is interesting to me, though, is how Caitlyn Jenner did in the election. Because, I mean, you want to talk about a thought I had that was wildly off base. I would have guessed that Caitlyn Jenner would have put up a stronger showing than this, and maybe even would have been the main opposition to Gavin Newsom, because they elected, in the past, California elected Arnold Schwarzenegger as a Republican governor. And so they do have that love of celebrity thing. So I thought, hey, maybe Caitlyn, you never know. I mean, it's highly unlikely it was a long shot that she would ever win, but I thought she'll probably be the main opposition to Gavin Newsom. I didn't expect a sort of obscure B-level or C-level right-wing radio host. I didn't expect that person to become the face of the opposition. That person did. Larry Elder, he got draxed. But Caitlyn Jenner got draxed even more, son. This is painful. So The Independent says, Caitlyn Jenner fumes over Newsom surviving recall after getting 1.1% of the vote to replace him. I can't believe that this many people actually voted to keep him in office. She got 1%, dog. 1%. She was trying to run a real campaign. She was doing all these interviews in all these different places. She hired a team of actual, real political staffers. And when all was said and done, she got 1% of the vote. By the way, the reason why she thought, hey, Newsom could go down here is because she would say, hey, when I was on the campaign trail, people would come up to me and they would say, we got to get this guy out. And she said throughout her whole time campaigning, only one person came up to her and said, I think Gavin Newsom's doing a good job. So she had that, it was like a selection bias where she felt like, well, everybody's against this guy. No, anybody who comes up to you is inclined to be against that guy. That's wildly different from everybody being against that guy. And really, at the end of the day, I think the California voters realized, the Politico article put it well. They said, it's not like people were excited to go vote no on the recall and keep Newsom in office. They viewed it as taking out the trash. So even though there was no... They weren't excited for it. They just thought, well, obviously not Larry Elder. That guy's insane. He's anti-vax. He's anti-minimum wage. He's against gun control. He's extreme. All the COVID protections that they have in place, which are actually popular in California, they thought this guy's going to get rid of them like that. And so they were just like, let me get this over with and just keep Gavin Newsom, in power. So the polls didn't really reflect the reality of it because even though there was no enthusiasm on the Democratic side, it didn't matter. It didn't ultimately matter because people viewed it like taking out the trash. Fine, no on the recall. There you go. So 1% of the vote. So then the question is, how the hell did that happen? There's three answers that I could come up with here. So the first one is, yeah, I do think it's the case that there is a strong contingent of I'm not really comfortable with the trans thing. So I do think that was an aspect of it. I do. Now, how big of an aspect is it? Well, that's debatable, because it's possible for there to be a trans person who is just a better, more dynamic, more charismatic, more likable person who could do better. But, it's certainly a factor. Not the ultimate factor, but it's a factor. The other thing is, so the trans thing, I don't think they really liked. The other thing is, she's not that likable. She's just as a person, she's not that likable. Totally apart from, the fact that she's trans. This is a person who killed somebody with her car and sort of got away with it. That alone, people look at and they're like, ugh. Now, I don't know what percentage of the voters actually knew that, but she doesn't have that X factor that a lot of candidates have, where it's like, I don't know, I just like the person. So that's another reason. And the other thing is, this honestly, I think might be one of the main things, is that Republicans, so you have the left hates the financial elite, and many on the left hate the financial elite and the cultural elite, but the biggest thing on the left is we hate the financial elite. The right, many on the right actually don't hate the financial elite. Some of them do. They definitely hate the cultural elite on the right. So she is the embodiment of the cultural elite. She's from Hollywood. She is part of the LGBTQ community. She is part of the Kardashian family, who are worth a gajillion dollars and who are on TV. We're on TV 24/7 for the past, like, Lord knows how long, 15 years, something like that. They look at her and they see this is part of what Trump positioned himself against. Now, of course, there's the irony that Trump was Hollywood, Ronald Reagan was Hollywood, but they felt like, well, these guys represent us and despise the rest of the cultural elite, where Caitlyn Jenner does not despise the rest of the cultural elite. Caitlyn Jenner is part of that world. And so I think they looked at her and they thought, no way. They're not comfortable with the trans thing. She's just not that likable overall. She hates the cultural, or they hate the cultural elite, and she represents the cultural elite. And really, also in terms of her policies, she's just a standard, like, Ayn Rand style right-winger. Like, uber capitalist. There's not even a hint of populism in her. So at the end of the day, when push came to shove, she got absolutely obliterated. I really thought she'd do better than this. I really thought she would get, honestly, at least like 10% of the vote. At least 10%. So I was way off on that. But Larry Elder, a much lower level celebrity who's been about this right-wing stuff his whole life, that's the person who was the face of the opposition. And even slimy used cars salesman Gavin Newsom was able to take him down because it's a Democratic state. It's a big Democratic state. And, you know, it's tough to run as a far-right candidate in a state like California, and Larry Elder learned that the hard way. It'll be interesting to see who runs against Newsom next, because he's up for election very soon. This was just a recall election. The actual election is actually not that far in the future. So we shall see for sure. What an embarrassing showing. This 1% is so sad. I think that what she's going to do, what Caitlyn Jenner is going to do, is she had a film crew with her the whole time. She's going to release a documentary, and she's going to, like, play the victim, and it's going to be insufferable. But I'll definitely watch it because it'll be worth it just for the lols.